College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, I would like to welcome all of you for this pre-Congress workshop that is going to be on how to make an effective scientific presentation. Today, we have Dr. Pandula Siribaddana, who is a senior lecturer from the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, who is an expert in medical education. He has kindly agreed to join us today to take you through on how to make an effective presentation. Hopefully, this will help you to improve your presentation, both oral as well as poster presentation that you will be doing during our Congress. So again, thank you very much, Pandula, for joining us. It's over to you now.
And for the college for inviting me for doing this session. And thank you everyone for joining in. So what I will do today is to take you through some key pointers with regard to oral presentations, and then we'll take you through PowerPoint basics that we think will help any presenter for that matter in doing a better presentation in a scientific forum. Then I'll also discuss a little bit about developing an abstract poster, a poster for your presentation, for which also we will be using PowerPoint. And I'm sure many of you are aware about these tools and techniques. But what we aim from this session is to be consistent in terms of how all the participants at the college sessions present, and also how they develop their posters, so that no one will be, in a way, will not be disadvantaged based on the design of such presentations, but you will be measured or valued in terms of the content and the benefit to the science. So let us, without further ado, start off. Let me first share the screen. Okay, hope you can see the slides.
Can see, sir.
Okay, great. So first of all, I said I take you through a few pointers related to general PowerPoint presentations, and then we'll move on to a demo using PowerPoint, and then that'll be probably we'll also discuss some discussions. I'm expecting to kind of finish my presentation or a demonstration within about 45 minutes, and we'll have about 15 to 20 minutes for discussion. So if you have any questions, please keep a note of it, and then I can clarify at the end. You can also post it to the chat so we can browse through it later on. Okay, so I'm going to give you a scenario, and then you can probably respond to this. The scenario is your research paper has been accepted as an oral presentation at SLSC. You must prepare a PowerPoint presentation and present your research in 6 minutes. You will have around 2 minutes of discussion. The audience may include doctors, academics, laypersons, and so on. And you will have a laptop and a projector at your disposal. So this is your scenario, somewhat similar to what you are in, the position of what you are in. And the guidelines also say that you have to do a 6 minutes oral presentation, and I think 2 minutes for discussion. Now, first question. How many slides would be ideal for this presentation? You can just type it in the chat. How many slides? Is it 6 to 8, 9 to 10, 11 to 12, 13 to 14? Just type A, B, C, or D in the chat. I see there's mixed reactions. Some say A, there are people for B also, C, and D also to an extent. But mostly I think it's, yeah, almost equal. So only few people have responded so far. So since we are taking on time, may I just mention that generally the principle is that you will spend about a minute in your slide explaining in a scientific presentation. So if that is the case, the ideal would be for you to have a slide per minute. So if it is a 6 minute presentation, you might use about six slides in that. But of course, this will all depend on your style and the nature of your presentation as well. So the principle I would go for here is to have the minimum number of slides as much as possible, because you will, if you have a slide and if you have animations in between also, then you will ideally spend time on explaining each of those pointers or each of those slides, and that will take time. So stick to a minimum. Don't go beyond and have a lot of slides for you to present, because the of course the sessions will be very strict in terms of time. You will not be given any additional time, and of course you want to send your message incomplete, not halfway through. So always have the minimum number, and of course we'll discuss how you can get it even if you have more than this number of slides, how you can get it into fit to that time, we will discuss later on. Okay, so in preparation for your presentation, how will you use PowerPoint? And I'm sure you all will know. Is it A, prepare slides, B, maintain notes, C, rehearse presentation, D, all of the above? You can provide your answer to this question also by typing it in the chat. Yeah, everyone seems to think D. Generally, you don't put all of the above or none of the above in a MCQ, right? But in this instance, you're all correct. We can use PowerPoint for anything, preparing, maintaining, and notes, and also rehearsing. And we are going to just look at those because these are important elements when you're doing a PowerPoint presentation or an electronic presentation for that matter. Then if a technical problem prevents you from presenting your PowerPoint slide, what would you do? There are 4 options. Request for a different time slot, hold your presentation until the problem is sorted, continue presentation without PowerPoint, withdraw your presentation. Please type in your response. So far, everyone seems to see that C is the correct way to go. Yes, someone says A also. But I would say, I would agree with the first responders who said continue presentation without PowerPoint. That's probably the way to go, because PowerPoint is a tool to aid your presentation or what you're going to, present. That should not be a determinant of whether you can actually deliver the message or not. So it's always best for you to prepare yourself to such a scenario without depending on too much on the PowerPoint also, but use PowerPoint effectively or a presentation tool, whatever you use for effectively, to attract the attention of the audience and to get them immersed in your presentation. So that's the use of PowerPoint. If it doesn't work, you will be the determining factor, right? So it's always good for you to prepare by heart, prepare for that presentation or that 6 minutes of delivery of your message. Right. Thank you for your responses. Let's now move into the basics of PowerPoint. Now, when presenting text, this is something that we all try to do, a lot of text in our slides. So you can read through this and understand for yourself. Why don't you spend a minute and read? If you're reading the last part of the paragraph, I hope you're not cursing me for asking to read. because this is what will happen. Like you will present a lot of text into your slide. The most likely scenario is that you will be speaking of the same thing as well. So you are actually sending the same information using two different channels, the text as well as voice. That's where the cognitive overload can happen. So use, again, going back to my previous sentence, use the PowerPoint as a way of keeping people interested, attracting their attention, but not necessarily to disseminate all the information that you are about to speak, right? You are there to explain. So you just need pointers in your slideshow. So don't have paragraphs, use bullets instead. Right. A little bit about the fonts that you may use. There are two types of fonts. I'm sure you know these. There's sans versus sans serif. When you look at sans fonts, like the Times New Roman, you see that there is a tail related to each of the ends of each of the letters. But in sans serif, the serif part is not there. And what you see is a very demarcated font. Those are like Calibri and related fonts. So when you are using in an electronic screen, it's better to use the sans serif fonts where you don't have these tails. So fonts like, I think, Arial and Calibri, these are better in terms of reading in an electronic screen. So this is true for both on-screen presentations or the PowerPoints you create, as well as for the posters that you create later on. However, if it is in a printed form, people say that it's the, serif may help, and therefore text that with the tail might help in maintaining the flow of text. And sometimes it may be easy to read in that sense. But always try to see whether it's possible for you to use the sans serif, right? That's where you don't have these tails. That's a little bit about the fonts. Right. When presenting text, present your text as succinct chunks of text, ideally as bullet points. Maximum 5 to 6 bullet points per slide. No more than 6 words per line. Minimum text size of 18. I'll go back to these sizes later. And you may probably have realized now, always check your spelling, because you are using an electronic tool and there's no reason whatsoever that you cannot do a spell check. It'll do it automatically, but mind you, if you have copy pasted text in certain formats, or if you have capital letters, sometimes the spell checker will avoid checking those texts. So you might at least end up with spelling mistakes. And therefore, it's always good for you to ask a different set of eyes, meaning a colleague of yours to go through, and they will probably look at it and highlight some of these mistakes. Because sometimes when you look at it for a 100th time, you might miss a lot of things. So it's good to ask somebody else to look at. And also, like I did, don't treat your slide as a script. That happens when you are not prepared for it, right? I always said, have the slide as as an aid for your speech rather than a script of your speech. So be mindful of that. Now, I am certain that many of you have been thinking about the bunny, isn't it? I have been talking about something else, but there's a bunny on the side. I'll get back to the bunny later on. Okay, bullet points. When you using bullet points, please be kind enough to use only few bullet points. Having too many bullet points will not only distract the audience, but will prevent your message from being heard. So when you have bullet points, limit it. Maybe 6 to 7 bullet points maximum in a slide, and probably best not to go overboard with it, because that again adds chunks. And also, if you add graphics or animations to that, then again, it takes time. As you try to explain each of the point, you probably will take additional time in doing so. So I hope you will stick to that, concise way of presenting. Now about the bunny, right? When you present images, include images which can explain what you are the delivery, the message that you are wanting to deliver. right? Just because an image looks nice or which may be, decorative, don't edit, because as you did, you may wonder why this image there, why there is a bunny with, raised up ears in the slide. What is the meaning of it? So people will start focusing on that and may lose, focusing on your message that you are about to deliver. So always avoid images, charts, or anything that is unrelated, that may not add value to the presentation that you're making. So that's the purpose of including that bunny. Right. So this is an example of an image that you may have in a PowerPoint presentation. I would like you to tell me which of these may be better when you're presenting. Is it A or B? Which of these styles actually, right? Which of these styles? Which one is better, A or B? So I'm getting a lot of B's. Obviously, you have found it easier, isn't it? Yes. So your answer is correct. It's B. The reason being that in the first instance, you may realize the amount of work that you have to do is more. You have to identify the bone you want to name, and then identify the number related to it, and then go down this list, and it is not numbered. Even if it is numbered, you have to go down the list, find the number, and then get the text, and then match it again with the skull. Whereas in the image B, you don't have to do any of it because it's direct. So when you're presenting, find a way to reduce the workload for the audience in order to find your information. So this is just to prove that fact, that there may be ways of like this positioning of text with your images or using various other means to help the audience focus on what your point that you're presenting. So this may be one way of doing that when you want to name images. Right. What do you think about this particular image? Do you think this is suitable for a scientific presentation? And if not, why is not? Just type it in what you are feeling in the chat. Imagine that this is your whole research and you want to show this to the audience, just to show them that I did this. Just tell me whether you feel that this is suitable. If you think it's not, why? Or if you think it's yes, why? Give you a minute. Someone says no, very cluttered and hard to follow. Any other thoughts? Include small words nobody could read. Yes. Any other thoughts? So I agree with both of you who said no, and that once it's cluttered, and in the other instance, it's small words. Why we don't want this to be included is that it's not actually contributing to what you are going to say, because nobody really understands what's there and they cannot decipher the message that you're trying to. It certainly says that you have probably done a lot of work and that the work may be very complex, but other than that, it doesn't add value, right? So if you have these kind of charts, diagrams, tables, in your, maybe what you're doing is, you have a thesis and you're trying to kind of now present it in a very succinct way, or you have a paper that you want to present. If you have these kind of complex diagrams and tables, avoid it, right? Extract only the relevant ones or zoom in into, the most important area. Explain it. and then present it as a very clear image with enough text size and um, uh, proves the point that you're speaking. So avoid this kind of thing. General, the statement that follows is that the presenter will say, I know that you can't read it and understand it, but that's the starting statement for this kind of a slide. Okay, so avoid that. Choosing colors. You must choose colors wisely. The text not only becomes unclear, but could also lead to confusion, distraction, headache, nausea, vomiting, loss of bladder control, right? So always use your colors wisely. Now you can see how when you use multiple colors and certain mismatching colors, that how it can get unclear, right? Hazy, and you cannot actually comprehend. The audience cannot comprehend what's being told. And also there is a certain percentage of people who are colorblind also, keep in mind. And therefore use contrasting colors for text and the background, lighter the better for the background. And then make sure that you don't use too much of colors also, right? You may want to highlight with a color, that's fine, but make sure that it's contrasting and it's clear, and that's not doing more too much. Animations, yes, you can use animations, but however, too much animation could also make the audience dizzy, frustrated, annoyed. So minimize animations, right? It also takes time, right? Each animation will require me to explain, wait, pause. But without that, you can probably do it much faster. But there may be instances where you want to have a simple animation to prove a point, right? Or you want the people to focus on that particular point. It's all right to use it, but always be balanced about using different types of animations. Right. So although I said that leave the questions to the last, I would like to entertain few questions if you have from what we have just discussed up to now, if there's any. Any questions or even comments are welcome, because we can all learn from, there may be experts in PowerPoint or presentations here also. Please share your thoughts or anything that you have learned as you do your presentations. Okay. Since there's no questions and comments, let me now move on to uh, PowerPoint. The demo in this instance will focus on, I hope you can see the PowerPoint now. Is it the PowerPoint that you're seeing? Can I get a confirmation? Anyone? Hope you are seeing the PowerPoint. Thanks. Thank you, Musician. All right. So now, of course, obviously, everyone knows PowerPoint and how to use it, what's expected, and so on. You have seen the guidelines that says about how, the use of fonts and use of slides, how many slides that the college recommends for the presentations. Try to adhere to that as much as possible. But I'll try to give you some tips in order to make your PowerPoints, fitting the occasion. Now, apart from what I've just described, using PowerPoint is not necessarily is to present your message to the audience alone, right? PowerPoint is also a to you itself, right? Yourself. So when you're presenting, obviously you will in your podium, you will have the presenter's view, meaning that you will see your slide, as well as the next slide, and then text relevant to that particular slide. Let me just see whether I can show. I can show this slideshow. If I go to presenter view, hope you all can see this, right? If you can see this particular view, the presenter view. Now here, this is the view that you will get when you're presenting there, right? In the podium. This is, any scientific congress, you will see this, but the audience will only see your slide, only the slide, not anything else, right? Now, what I'm suggesting you to do is basically when you have this, use your presenter to the fullest. And I know when we do presentation, even everyone does, you have a lot of notes with you, right? You paper notes and everything. And sometimes you kind of, everything jumbles up and sometimes you couldn't find where is which also. What I suggest is, I'm sure many of you already do this, is actually to use PowerPoint notes to keep notes. For example, if you lift the line below your slide in a normal view in PowerPoint, you get a space where you can type content, right? There is a space for you to type text. Here, you can actually type stuff. You can actually type stuff relevant to what you're going to present, right? I can say introduce, right? You don't have to type in capitals, but you can, just type what you want there. Introduce, welcome the audience, well, explain the importance of PowerPoint, right? I'm just putting some notes here. You could have a script also in your notes, but I don't really recommend because you have your own style and your way of presenting. If you practice enough, you will not need that notes. And when you try to look at it, and sometimes this has happened to me also, some text can probably maybe too small or not clear, depending on the laptop. You may not even read at that point. So if you are dependent on that notes, then you will be in trouble. But if you only use it for to guide you. Now, for example, here, now you see, you have the main slide on the left, you have the next slide on the right upper space, and then you have, I can introduce the font size also, the notes I have put for that particular slide, for the first slide. Now, this is a way of preventing you from forgetting the key things that you are expected to talk during that during this presentation. So use that effectively. You can have slide notes for each of the slides and have pointers to guide you during this. And of course, if you have practiced several times, you will not even need this. But if you forget, you have a way of referring. So you don't need the papers or the printed ones that you may want to have. So use this effectively. This is one I just want to kind of mention. The second thing I was wanting to mention is when you're making the PowerPoint, it's always good for the audience for it to be consistent, right? Now, how you make PowerPoints consistent is by applying a particular layout consistent. Now, for example, when you get a PowerPoint, the first slide, as you know, is the title slide, right? So this is the title. I'm just putting a title. Right? And then you probably have your name and your credentials and so on. And then when you insert the next slide, you will see that if you go to new slide, it automatically gives you a slide layout where you have on the top a title, and then second part is a bulleted list, right? So in the first one, you can say, whatever the title. And then you can put the pointers. Right? Then when you go to the third slide, again, you get the same layout. Now, if you don't want this layout and if you want a bigger layout, you can manipulate it, but you can always also go to the layout option, which is on the upper left, just next to the new slide option. You will find somewhere a layout option where you can select a different layout. Now, the benefit of using this is, now, for example, I want a 2-column layout, right? Two-column layout. And then when I say next slide, I again get the same layout. But if I want to change it back, I use the layout option to change it back. So I can say now, third slide, right? So now I have 4 slides here. But because I use the layout, what it does is the text are consistent. The title always appear in the same place. First slide, second slide, third slide. The bullets, if you have used, will also appear in the same place. And the text sizes are also the same. Now, what this makes for the audience feel comfortable with reading something like that, because they don't lose track of it. They don't, if you try to do this manually and try to apply formats manually, which you could, you might change, say, for example, first one you might create bold, the second text may be, a little bit bigger, the third one probably will be displaced somewhere else. Now, if I look at this, you will notice first slide, second slide is different, third slide, the title is somewhere else. It's inconsistent. And sometimes people may wonder, oh, is this something related to the previous title or is it a new title? I mean, they get confused. So always best for your slides to be consistent, have a consistent layout so that people don't lose track of it. And that's something I think it'll be beneficial for you as you develop your PowerPoint slides. Then I would like to talk a little bit about the need for you to rehearse, because you only have 6 minutes, right? And when you have 6 minutes, if you start, even now I'm thinking like, I could finish this particular segment by 25 minutes, which I am now not able to do, right? That is because I didn't do this previously to time it within that, available time. So the same thing will happen to you during the conference as well. If you don't plan it for 6 minutes, if you don't rehearse, PowerPoint provides a very powerful tool that is a slideshow, where you can actually practice yourself the timing and also record your narration in each of those slides, right? This is useful when if you are doing a poster presentation also, the college is expecting you to record your narration, isn't it? So this is useful for that as well. But the important thing in terms of presenting will be rehearse timing. So if you go to rehearse timing, I will select a different slideshow. I'm sure many of you are quite aware of it, but just in case, rehearse timing gives you the same presenter mode, and now you can start presenting as if you are presenting to your colleagues or to your audience, right? And when you are ready to move to the next slide, you press your, right arrow or space bar or move to the next one. And then you continue to present. And you see there is a timer appearing on the left upper quadrant. You see a timing for each slide. And it basically records that time as well, right? So you move to the next, and it moves on until end. So this is for you to rehearse for each of the presentation. Now, when you are stopping, it's asking whether you want to save the total timing. Better not save it, otherwise your slides will automatically move when you're presenting. So better to avoid that. Don't save the time unless you want to do that. Now that is rehearse time. Similarly, you can record it also. Now, if you are having a poster presentation, what you need to do is, create your poster and then go to record slideshow. same thing will happen. And once you're ready, you can also see that yourself is there appearing. And I'm not sure whether Sanjeeva, you are there. If you're there, just at the end, please clarify whether you want the video to be there or whether you don't want it. The college, I'm not sure about that. But in case it's necessary, you can always have your video on the bottom or wherever you please, or you can turn off your video as well, right? Both are possible. But the important thing will be for you to record using the start record button. You press the start record and it gives you a counter, and then you start presenting and it records. So if you have only one slide, as in the case of poster, you don't have to move anywhere, but you do your presentation. I think it's within 2 minutes. Finish it and then stop so that your narration will get recorded with your slide so that you can send to the college, because the audio is there in your slide, the poster slide, right? Otherwise, you can use this as a way of listening to your own voice. You can get feedback through this. You can then listen to your own voice. Am I saying the right thing? Am I saying something different? Am I saying anything that, am I missing anything? So those things can be measured or can be identified by listening to your own voice, right? So this is something useful. I thought I will mention it to you, but I'm sure many of you are using it instead. So for me, generally, I do several of these in order to see whether I am fitting within 6 minutes. And usually you can do that, right? If you practice, otherwise it'll be very difficult. Right. Given the time and given that how fast it moves, can't imagine how fast it moves. I will just explain to you about the posters, and this will be important if you're presenting a poster or even if you're doing it some other time. Probably this will also be useful for you. Now, the college expects you to prepare your posters also using PowerPoint, and therefore it has also given some guidelines on that. But we had a discussion initially, and we realized that some of the requirements mentioned in the poster presentation may be limiting, because it may be difficult for you to create a poster using those guidelines. For example, the font size and all might not allow you to do it in that, in a proper way. Now, how this poster will be presented, I'm sure you know, is the poster will be presented through a TV screen, a 55-inch TV screen, horizontally placed in a, say, how do you say, horizontally oriented. So it's wider, and therefore you have to use the landscape orientation for your slide, not the portrait orientation. Otherwise, if you make it and if it is presented in a horizontally oriented TV, it will be in a small section of the screen, right? So, prepare it using the landscape orientation, the same what you are seeing now. And also, my suggestion is that don't stick to the default size of the slide, the default size that you are getting. What you can do is go to design, right? Design uh, 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 bar, and you can see that there is an option called slide size, right? There, of course, you probably already have selected widescreen, 16:9 ratio. That's the ratio that you should use. Go to page setup, right? Go to page setup. I am suggesting that you use a setup that is at least 3 feet by 2 feet for your post. This is not because you are printing, but you are presenting it in a wider screen, and it will be easier for you to arrange this poster there. So it's roughly around 91 centimeters by, I think it's 33 or something. By 30. So we'll take it. Just double check, and even if it is slightly different, don't worry, right? It can, even if you want, you can make it to 4 feet by 3 feet. It won't matter. Ultimately, it will be presented within a full screen. But this is just, don't use the default, the size, because it will be too small for you to put everything, right? And then what can happen is Now, you may have an image that looks nice in your screen, but when it is projected into your, bigger screen, everyone will see the blurs and the distortions or any, poor quality segments of that image because you have not scaled it or put it in the right resolution, right? So I have now increased the size, but you will notice that there's now, of course, this is not the right size, no? So I think I have put up the wrong size. So it's, I think, 91 by, say, 40 or something. 2 feet is 24, 48, I think it's around 250. Yeah, I will say 50 something. Okay, so this may be almost, right? So this is the size I want. I will get rid of these two, right? I will get rid of these two boxes. I don't need it, but I will keep it, focused all in one. The first thing I will do, the next thing I will do is to decide on a layout. Now, remember, when you're making a poster presentation, there are general rules that you need to remember. The people who are looking at the poster will stay about 1 meter to 1.5 meters away from the screen to look at it, right? That's the distance that you want to present stuff. People 10 feet, 15 feet away will not look at it because, that's not the expectation. Expectation is to people to come close, look at it and appreciate it and probably, learn from it. So they will be close by 1.5 to 2 feet maximum, right? And although you have 2 minutes to present, generally it's understood that people will lose focus after 15 to 20 seconds, right? So within the first 15 to 20 seconds, you have to convince the person why they should go through this poster, why they should stay for the whole 2 minutes and not move to the next screen to look at another post, right? So be mindful of that. This means that your initial segment of your poster is also important and what you are saying is also important, right? And the design of the poster is dependent on your style, right? You can be free in terms of design. I think the college also wants you to be innovative and be presenting it in a way that it's, attractive to the people who are looking at it. But as a rule, generally people tend to like looking at things vertically from top to bottom, right? And then move to the next column. So rather than arranging things horizontally, best to arrange things vertically and then move to the next. So having, you can have 1, 2, and then 3, 4, rather than 1, 2, 3, 4 horizontal, right? So that's something, if you feel that it fits your presentation, you can use. Otherwise, you can be innovative in terms of that as well. Right. Just to give you a simple, overview of how to get this post done now, you may initially have, planned out where to put which things, right? Initially draw it in a piece of paper, place the title somewhere where you want it, the introduction, methodology, or whatever the structure that you want, and where to put the key references that you have to have it in a piece of paper. Where to put the diagrams, where to put the tables, which tables, that also you need to decide. Have it in a piece of paper first. And then the easiest way for you to arrange this, apart from using a template, is to use text boxes or shapes. I will use shapes here because it has a color and I can illustrate it better. For the title, I will put a box at the very top. Imagine that that's the title, right? And I will copy paste another box just underneath. And I will, for the purpose of illustration, I will have a different color. This is the place probably where you will put your authors, affiliations, and so on, right? Then I might have another box for the introduction, right? So I might put another box. The heading is this. And I copy pasted another box for rest, right? You can make it larger, right? You can make it larger because you have enough space in this, depending on how many, what's your structure and what you want to do. Let me hide my screen. Okay. Right. Now, if you want multiple boxes, you just select both of it. You know that while pressing the shift key, if you click on these two boxes, it gets selected both. Now press Control C, you copy it. If you press Control V, then you can duplicate it, right? So like that, you can then arrange any number depending on the way you want to structure your presentation, poster, right? It's easier than designing it again and again, and it's consistent as well. Now, you may want to kind of move these to the side to accommodate if you have any diagrams or images, either in between or by removing one of these, right? Now you can arrange anything, right? So once you have these boxes, it's easier for you to manipulate and then decide where things go. Of course, you will have it in your piece of paper, but once you put it into your active slide, then you will notice other things, right? This may be better going differently. The colors also, you decide which colors you want to put for attracting better. Again, the contrast is important. This is an electronic screen. The fonts I have told previously, and also the sizes. Now, in this instance, if I may tell, if you are to put the title, say, I will say burnout among surgical trainees, right? The font size of 18 is very small now, right? You will have to have at least font size of 100 for it to be visible for that size, right? So when it is presented in depending on the screen, it gets bigger, right? But if you design it for now since this is 3 feet by 2 feet, your fonts also needs to be proportionately bigger, right? But if you use the same default slide, then the font will be either 18 or 20 still. But since we have enlarged the slide, now you have to proportionately make it bigger, right? It's better to use the title case, something like having titles all capitalized rather than writing things in full capital, right? This is the usual APA typing, title case. And then this is something that you can also employ. Now, what I am saying here is not to use the same design or the same technique, but a way of organizing it, right? Now, once you have these placeholders or the text boxes or whatever you are going to put in place, it's a matter of adding the text, right? Edit text. If you want to put an introduction, we will say introduction. And of course, you have to then increase the font size for appropriate readability. So you can always be proportionate. You can, compare it with the title and put your subheadings, but be consistent in that as well. And always make it contrasting so that people can read it at a 2 meters distance. Okay. And of course, when you're putting text, it's better to, again, as we did with the PowerPoint, to have things typed using bullet points, right? Again, something that we discussed earlier. Now here, white text appears, but you know that it needs to be contrast, right? So you can highlight, change contrast, and of course, increase the point. Okay, so these are ways of designing this poster. But be mindful, you don't need to present everything in your research. No need to present everything in your thesis. This is an innovative thinking that you have to present what matters to the audience. And I suggest you practice looking at your research and creating an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch is basically something that you, based on what you have done, you try to explain it within few seconds to somebody who you may have met in the elevator, right? And you may have about 10-15 seconds only to give that pitch, right? But of course, for you to do that, you need to think differently, right? For example, you may have done the research and now think within a minute, how can I explain this research, what I did, say to my son or daughter? How can I explain this to my parents? How can I explain this to my boss, right? How can I explain this to an investor? How can I explain this to the president of the country? Now, each of these scenarios will require you to present differently. And unless you are very thorough with your research and know the exact meaning related to each of those persons, you will not be able to do that in a, at a second's notice. So always now think of the audience that you are getting, which is largely people with surgical interests, and then think how best can I explain what I did for them to benefit from what I am presenting. And that way you can structure your uh, poster accordingly. I don't think there is a hard and fast rule that you have to adhere to this same introduction, methodology, results, interpretation, discussion. I don't think there is a need to adhere to that particular structure, right? You can adapt a structure like the problem, strategy, benefits, impact. There's different ways of presenting things, right? But always make sure you are presenting all the unique things about your research, all the unique findings about your research, as well as everything that contributes to science and practice. And that's probably what people want to see. Now, for people to attract the audience, the people who are passing by and looking at this poster, you can include a summary at the beginning if you wish. Right? If you think fitting, you can include an eye-catching summary that will brief people and entice them to read the rest of the poster, right? So now I have spent about 50 minutes discussing this. I would like to now stop and invite any questions from you, anything you want clarifications about oral, what we just discussed. You can also type it into the chat if there's any questions or clarifications. There's a question. Can you repeat the size of the sliding poster presentation? So what I demonstrated was 3 feet by 2 feet, which is, generally the size that may be used for designing this kind of a poster presentation. So that may be ideal for you. 3 feet by 2 feet converted in centimeters or inches, depending on the units that you have in your PowerPoint. You can use the default size also, right? There's nothing, prohibiting using the default size, because still you will end up with the same thing. But you will, have difficulties in inserting, large enough images or, getting more details out of it, that you may have difficulties with. And something I forgot to mention is that make sure the images that you put into your images or graphs or whatever extracts other than text that you are putting into your poster is of adequate quality. So when I say adequate quality, this generally is measured in resolution, DPI, dips per minute. And ideally it should be 100 and above, right? For an electronic type of presentation. Because if you are making it at this size, because when it gets enlarged, you might notice that there is less quality or contrast, clarity of those images if you have low resolution images. Hope that answers. Any other questions or clarifications needed? Okay, if there's no other questions or clarifications, may I hand over to the college for any other things that I may have missed that needs to be mentioned, or anything else that needs to be explained? Sanjeeva, are you there? Um, college mic is mute. Yes, there's no one on the other end from the college side. So I don't see any questions in the chat. Oh, this was
Pandula.
right. Okay. No, I was asking, so we went through the basics. Is there anything that from your side you want to add with regard to the posters or oral presentations?
I think we have communicated all the details to the potential presenters, and I hope all of them have received that. And with the guidance you have given, hopefully they can,
Yeah.
I guess, develop a very effective poster
Yes.
and also the PowerPoint
Sanjeev,
presentations.
yeah, Sanjay,
Yeah,
just to, as I said earlier, so some of the, the details mentioned in that guideline related to font size and all, we can probably be flexible in it, because when you create it at a bigger, screen, they might actually have to use a bigger font instead. So I
yeah,
think it will depend on
absolutely
the
agree.
scales
So
of the.
I request all the participants, please follow what Dr. Pandul had instructed you. I mean, we have just given a guidance only, but please take his advice and develop your presentations accordingly. Please feel free to do that. There won't be any problem with it.
Right.
There are a
Sanjay,
lot of questions.
please
There
go
are a
ahead,
lot of
Sanjay.
questions in chat. No?
I can't see any. No.
Tomorrow is the deadline. So whatever the modification that needs, they can make those and make the resubmission. Please feel free to do that.
So 1 day for making the changes.
Yeah, I think there is one other question that is asked whether they
Yeah.
can resubmit. Of course, you can. Tomorrow is the deadline. So if you can do it before tomorrow afternoon, you're all welcome to do that.
Maybe Sanjay, college can send a small note, I suppose. And also,
Yeah, we will do that.
yeah, if this presentation is recorded, maybe there may be others who
Yes,
have not joined.
that's what I was
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
say.
yeah.
So what we are going to do is we have recorded your presentation and we are going to upload it to YouTube. So that will be readily accessible to all the trainees. If you want to go through the presentation again, Dr. Pandula's presentation again, you can go through that and make necessary modifications accordingly.
Okay, Sanjeev, I think since there's no other questions, we
Okay,
can
so
call
if
it a
there are
day.
no more questions again, thank you very much, Pandula. That had been very useful. I think always we can learn something new by listening to somebody who has done this before, and somebody with a background like yours, with an expert in medical education. So your expertise are really welcome, and thank you again on behalf of College of Surgeons, Pandula, for taking time off and going through all the details and finding out what our instructions were and how it is going to be presented. So I know it was a very meticulous presentation. So thank you very much, and all the the listeners, please. So we are going to extend the date of resubmission. We will communicate that officially via our email as well, and we will upload this presentation to YouTube today. So if you want to listen again, you would be able to do that. We will share the YouTube link shortly. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.